So this video might seem a little bit random, but bear with me. Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. Today I am doing something a little bit different for my channel. I don't think I've actually ever talked about books on my YouTube channel. If you're a longtime subscriber, one, hi, thank you for sticking around. And two, you might also remember that I used to do read latelys on my blog. If you guys remember my blog, please let me know, because that was like OG status right there. I used to do read latelys on my blog and I love to read, and I don't know why I've never really brought that into my YouTube channel. When I used to do monthly favorites, I would talk about books, but I've never done a dedicated book video. So I thought I would do a what I've read lately video, and this video is going to encompass all of the books that I've read so far this year. Some of them will have been on my Kindle. I use a Kindle Paperwhite and I absolutely love it. Honestly, like sometimes when I go back to like reading a book, I don't like it because like you have to like fold it over and stuff, and it's not like super easy to like read when you're lying in that pregnancy pillow on your side because like it's so high. So honestly, like I'm reading a book right now and I'm reading Alex Approximately, and it's in regular book form, and I'm really thinking about putting it on my Kindle because I'm just like having a hard time getting through it, you know what I mean? It's not because it's bad, it's just because like it's kind of like awkward to read when I'm like lying in bed, which is where I primarily do all my reading. Anyway, that is not the point of this video. The point of this video is to go through all of the books that I've read so far this year. I have 14 books to kind of like let you guys know about and do a mini review on, so it's a lot of books. So grab a cup of tea. If I hadn't have had my coffee already today, I would grab another cup, or a cup, 1 cup for me, woohoo. So some of these books I listened to on Audible, which I don't really use too often. After I read the first book, or I listened to the first book actually, I canceled my Audible account because I just wasn't using it. But I did find some of these books actually on YouTube in their Audible form. So might be cheating, but I mean, I just thought I would Google it one day. But I was reading one of these books and I wanted to read as I was like working, but I didn't have Audible. So I just like Googled the book and the audiobook came up. So I was like, okay, or I YouTube searched the book. Anyway, let's start with the books. And the first book was the only one that I listened to on Audible exclusively, and that is Fully Functioning Human Almost by Melanie Murphy. And I'm gonna leave like the covers up here if I don't have them in physical form. I actually only have 3 books in physical form. But yeah, so Melanie Murphy, if you don't know, is an Irish YouTuber, and she focuses primarily on like lifestyle stuff and her sexuality and kind of like growing as a person and kind of just like a little bit of everything. Like she does a little bit of beauty stuff, but like she doesn't call herself a beauty YouTuber because she like says that she's crap at makeup, which I don't agree with, but whatever. She wrote a book anyway about growing up and how she's grown up to be an almost fully functioning human. And it's broken up into different sections, from like body image and her struggle with an eating disorder, to sexuality, because she is bi, so her sexuality, she talks about that. Her friendships, her relationships, her family, everything like that. And I just found it so relatable. I think because we're the same age, or like almost the same age, I just found it so nice to listen to someone talk about things and like be able to like nod along. And it was kind of reassuring, and like it kind of just made me feel like, oh, okay, so I wasn't the only one going through that. I listened to this as I was walking Cooper every day, and I remember I would just like feel so happy listening to it. And it honestly surprised me, and I tweeted her after I finished it and I was like, I'm really sorry, like I went into this book with a preconceived idea that it was going to be crap because it was a YouTuber's book, which I don't know why I had that preconceived idea, but I did. And I was like, I'm really sorry, because honestly it's so good. So it made me like stand up in public and like publicly admit that I was wrong, and it's just a really good book. So if you're looking for a book that's kind of like coming of age, but also like you might be able to relate to, I'm 27 by the way, so if you are around my age, I think that you will really relate to this book. It's definitely worth checking out. So the second book I read and the next two books I read were on Kindle. So I read Lost in a Book by Jennifer Donnelly, and this is a retelling, or it's not a retelling, it's like a story based around Beauty and the Beast. And I was really excited for this book because I love fairy tales, I love retellings of fairy tales, and I was just really excited. I had high hopes for this book, but I shouldn't have, because honestly I was majorly disappointed. The whole idea is that Belle finds this book that transports her to a different world, and it's all about like her adventures in that world, and like kind of like mostly her adventures in that world. But honestly, what I struggled with throughout this book was how similar they made the book to the most recent movie that came out, or even like the animated movie. Like some things were like word for word like how they were done in the movie, and I just didn't really like that. Like it felt kind of like, I don't know, it felt kind of like cheap or childish or something. And maybe it is a childish book. Like I'll put my hand up and say I love young adult books, like I love easy to read books, but I was just majorly disappointed by it. The story itself, like in the other world, was really interesting, and I found that to be really like a good part of the book. But I think it was just more when she was like back in the castle that like they were describing things, and it was just like kind of like I was reading the movie, if that makes sense. I feel like they could have done more with the like castle world. But yeah, so that's Lost in a Book. Cooper's just casually eating Gary's underwear behind me, no big deal. The next book I read on the airplane back from Ireland to Arizona. Well, I read it on the flight from Ireland to Philadelphia actually, so I read it in like 6 hours or less. I didn't sleep at all. I think I just read this book. I didn't watch any movies or anything. But the book is Come Back to Me, I can't speak, by Mila I'm not sure how you pronounce it, Gray. And I loved this book, and like I said, I like kind of young adult books and stuff that's like easy to read, and this book was so easy to read. It kept you interested and you kept wanting to turn the page. So basically it's about like, it starts out and you find out that there's this girl and her brother and her boyfriend are both in the army, I think it is, and you find out that one of them's died. You don't know which one it is, but then it kind of like flashes you back to like her life and the start of her boyfriend and her relationship and stuff like that, and it kind of just brings you from there. And I was so into this book, like I loved this book, and I think Mila Gray has like a bunch of other books that are kind of around the same thing, so I definitely want to read them, but I read this book so fast, as you can tell, so I really liked it. So the next book I read is The Girl of Fire and Thorns, and honestly I was kind of disappointed in this book. I think this is a series, but I haven't picked up the second one. I was kind of like dragging my feet through the entire book, but it's basically about this world where once every century like someone is chosen for greatness, and like a prophecy is fulfilled and all of that, and it kind of just like goes from there. I can't remember what's a spoiler and what's not a spoiler, so I don't really want to say anything, but essentially on her 16th birthday she's married off to this other king in this distant land, and it's all about like kind of that stuff like that. But honestly, like I thought it was a little bit slow, and I just didn't find myself kind of like sympathizing with the characters or like relating to the characters at all. I just thought it was a little bit boring. This is actually the book that I found on YouTube to listen to because I was working, like I said, and I just wanted to listen to it just to kind of get through it, but I was kind of disappointed by this. So like I said, I haven't picked up the second one. Maybe eventually I will, but I highly doubt it. So the next two books I read were from the Fallen Kingdom series, and I picked up this book because of my friend Paige, which I have to give a shout out to her because she's the whole reason why I started watching like booktubers, I guess you want to say, if you want to like categorize people. But her channel is Creating & Co. I'll leave it linked down below, and she posts a lot of book videos. And I'm not going to be posting like tons of book videos on this channel, maybe like once every few months, because like I said, I do like to read. But yeah, I read this book because of her, and it is Fallen Kingdoms by Morgan Rhodes. And I read the first one on my Kindle, but the second one was actually cheaper to buy in paperback, so I got it on Amazon, and that is Rebel Spring. And I wrote down in my notes that it's like Game of Thrones meets Gossip Girl, and those two are like two of my favorite shows, so of course I'm gonna like it. But essentially it's about these, like, I think it's 3 or 4 different kingdoms, maybe 4, I can't remember. But they essentially go to war with each other, and it's about like different characters in each kingdom and like kind of like how they intertwine with each other. And obviously there are like relationships and like romantic feelings there, because what's a good book without a romance? And yeah, so I really enjoyed these books. Like I said, it's kind of like Game of Thrones meets Gossip Girl, and it reads like a CW show, which I love books that read like TV shows. So I was really into it. I didn't pick up the 3rd one yet because I just wanted to give myself a break from this like world, and I just wanted to kind of like come back to reality a little bit, even though then you'll see towards the end of this list it's not realistic. But anyway, but yeah, if you're looking for a good like binge worthy series, definitely check out Fallen Kingdoms. Pregnancy breathing break. So the next book I read was the Creating and Co book club's book of the month, I believe. I can't remember what month it was, but it was a book of the month, and it is The Wicked Deep by Shay Earnshaw. And I loved this book. I loved this book. I will say it was a little bit predictable. I predicted the like kind of twist to Paige like way before the twist was revealed, but she kept her mouth shut. She had already read it. But essentially it's about this town where I think it was like a century ago, or I think it was like a century ago, these 3 witches were murdered and they were drowned, and every year they come back and they inhabit the bodies of 3 different girls, and they kind of lure boys into the ocean and they drown them and kill them. So that is the premise of this book, and it's about that summer and kind of like what happens that summer. And like I said, I felt like it was a little bit predictable, but it still kept me like really gripped to the edge of my seat, like just waiting for like the whole entire like plot to be revealed, and I really enjoyed it. So yeah, if you're looking for another quick binge-worthy read, The Wicked Deep is definitely one of them. I will say it did have mixed reviews in the book club, which I was surprised about, but I really enjoyed it. Okay, so the next 2 books I feel like are the simplest books that I probably could have on this list, because they're like way young adult, like really young adult. But they are the most recent 2 books of the Paper Princess series, and I read the Paper Princess series, I think it was like January of last year, and I think I read all 3 or 4 books. I think it's 3 books, I can't really remember. I think it's 3 in the original series that I read last year. I read the first 3 books I think in like a week, and I was hooked. I loved that series, and it just kept, yeah, I just loved it. I can't say anything about it. Like, it's simple, but like sometimes you need to read something simple because like why not? But essentially the next 2 books, they're Fallen Heir and Cracked Kingdom, and they're both by Erin Watt, obviously, because that's who does the Paper Princess series. And it switches from Ella's perspective to Easton's perspective. And before reading these books, I was kind of like, like, I don't know if I want to read them, because I didn't really like Easton as a character in the first 3 books. And I was kind of like sad to be leaving the whole like Ella and Reese, is his name Reese? No, his name's not Reese. That's A Court of Thorns and Roses. I can't remember his name. Maybe it is Reese, I don't know. I was really sad anyway to be leaving like kind of that storyline behind, because I had like fallen really in love with those characters. But honestly, I loved these books. I read them both, I think, in a week, and I really liked them. I'm not gonna give away too much of the plot because I just don't want to. But essentially it just follows Easton's storyline now, and you kind of see more into Ella's storyline through Easton, which is really interesting, and you kind of like see like his romantic endeavors and kind of like into his brain a little bit more, and I really liked them. I'm not sure if she's coming out with another one. I hope she is. I think her newest book just came out, because I just saw, I think it's like pre-downloaded on my Kindle because I pre-ordered it. Yes, so I have one small One Small Thing by Erin Watt downloaded. It's a totally different story, but I love all of Erin Watt's books just because they're so simple, but like so great. So the next book, I swear we're almost done. We have 5 more books to talk about. The next book that I read is The Way I Used to Be by Amber Smith, and this is about a girl who gets raped. I'm not going to say by who because I'm not sure if that's in the plot synopsis thing. But she gets raped, and it's essentially like kind of how it changes her life and how it changes her as a person and how she kind of like deals with that. It's hard for me to say whether, I don't know if I liked this book. It's hard for me to say because I've never gone through a similar situation, whether it was realistic or not. To me, it kind of felt like it wasn't realistic, but it very well could be. I felt like her downward spiral was a little bit much at some points. And I felt like some of the choices she made didn't line up with the kind of direction they were trying to take the character. But I mean, I enjoyed it. I was interested to see kind of like how her life turned out towards the end of the book. But I don't know if I would say that I loved it, if I'm being honest. But if you've read it, I would love to know what you think in the comments, because like I said, I've never gone through something that was like her situation, so it was hard for me to relate to. But yeah, I'd love to know what you think. So the next book I read was Daughter of the Pirate King by Trisha Levenseller. I think that's how you say her name. And I read this book because Paige recommended it. I get like most of my recommendations from Paige. Every time she puts out a new video, I just have my Goodreads open, like, okay, want to read, want to read, want to read, want to read. That's hard to say. But anyway, Daughter of a Pirate King, it's essentially, obviously like it sounds in the book or in the title, it's about the daughter of a pirate king. And she's on this ship on a secret mission from her father. And it's essentially just like how she kind of like deals with life on the ship. Obviously, there's some romantical feelings in there and stuff like that. I was really interested in this book because I've never really read anything about pirates before, and I really liked it. I liked the characters. I was kind of like invested in them, and there is a second book which I'm really interested in, but I just kind of like wanted to, I don't know why I'm just like not into like finishing series or like continuing series right now. I think I'm just like looking for more of like a broader kind of like group of books to read. But I really enjoyed Daughter of the Pirate King. It was really interesting, and I can't remember if I thought that it was predictable or not. I don't think it was very predictable. I need to start like writing down my thoughts on books like as I finish them if I'm gonna do these videos, because I can't really remember. But all I remember is I really enjoyed it and I would recommend it. So the next book I read was part of the Creating Co Relaxathon, which was a book, what do you call it? A readathon in the Creating Co book club, and it was the group read, and that was Starry Eyes by Jeane Bennett. And Starry Eyes to me is kind of like the Paper Princess series, where it's like super easy to read but like interesting, but I feel like the characters are maybe a little bit more rounded in Jeane Bennett's books. I don't know. Anyway, I really liked this book. It's essentially about 2 people who go on a hike, and well, they go camping, and then it turns into like something like a big adventure, and it's kind of like about their relationship and like their past and their family life and stuff. And I found it really interesting. I thought it was very well done, the way they kind of like brought the family dynamic into it without it being like too much. And yeah, I really enjoyed it. I think again, it had mixed reviews in the book club, but obviously like we're not all gonna like the same books. That's a given. But I really enjoyed it, and I'm actually reading Jeane Bennett's other book, Alex Approximately, right now, like I said in the beginning of this video, so I really like her style of writing, clearly. So the next book I read is a dark retelling of The Little Mermaid, and if you guys don't know, The Little Mermaid is my favorite Disney movie ever. It's my favorite. I love it. So I was really excited to read this book, and that is To Kill a Kingdom by Alexandra Christo. And I don't know, you guys. I really liked this book, but I found myself dragging my feet through it. I feel like it could have been darker. Like, I don't know if I would call it a dark retelling, but that's what people categorize it as. So I feel like it could have been darker. and I wanted it to be darker, and I also feel like the characters weren't very well rounded. Like some of the like decisions that the characters made and stuff like that, like I just felt like we're kind of like out of character. Like I just didn't think that they had like a lot of depth to them, but I enjoyed it. I mean, it was okay. I don't know if I would pick up a sequel if there was a sequel, but I did like what they did with the story and kind of like how they kind of shifted it to be a different story, but like still the same kind of backbone. So yeah, I liked it. If you're looking for a darker retelling of a classic Disney movie, check it out. And the last book that I have to share with you is Suicide Notes from Beautiful Girls by Lynn Weingarten. Don't know how you say her name. This is the New York Times bestseller. I don't know if any of the other ones were, but I'm just reading it off the top of the book. I had high hopes for this book. I read the back and I had high hopes for it. It's basically about a girl who they say burned herself alive in her stepfather's shed, and they say it was suicide, and it's about her friend who like doesn't believe that it was suicide and how she kind of like goes to like kind of prove or find out exactly what happened. I thought this book was really predictable. I really enjoyed it in the beginning, but kind of as the plot spiraled out, I was like, this is stupid. I don't know if you guys have ever felt like that, but it kind of just like went seriously downhill for me. And by the end of the book, I was like, you know what? No, this isn't for me. I don't really like it. It started off super strong, but I feel like they could have done a lot more with the plot, and it could have ended on a higher note. Not a higher note, like just it could have ended stronger. So yeah, let me know if you've read this. I would be really interested to know. I did read this in a day. So like I said, it did really hook me from the beginning, but it just didn't really do it for me towards the end. So I would love to know what you think. So that is all the books I've read. I think this is a super long video. I need to like edit everything down a lot. But if you have any book recommendations based on like kind of like what I've been reading, if you think that I would like something, let me know in a comment down below. I do have a business book video coming out in a few weeks on my favorite like business books that I've read, which I think is going to be really interesting for you guys, because I know a lot of you do run small businesses and stuff like that. So I'm really excited to bring that video to you. Yeah, I think that's about it. If you like these videos, also let me know in the comments. Like I said, I'm probably only going to do them every few months as I like kind of like generate a stack of books. Don't know how many books I'm going to be reading when baby F is born, but we shall see. But yeah, I hope you're having an amazing day, and I will see you in my next video. Bye guys.